Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate you, we inspire you, and boy, do we educate you. And today, I'm very, very, very excited for my guest. I'll tell you what, he's a dear, dear friend of mine, dear brother of mine, and I had a chance we shared the JMT DNA. Yes, I still got that blood in me, but Dennis LaRue, welcome to the show, man. Woo, the crowd goes wild.
I hear him. Daniel,
man,
my brother.
I saw
excited.
You on the schedule from a couple of weeks back, and I'm excited to have you, brother. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, my brother.
All right. Hello, everyone. Like Daniel said, I'm Dennis LaRue Jr., named after my dad. I live here in San Antonio, Texas. I'm an Air Force retiree, did 23 years, 1 month, 29 days. For my veterans out there, you know those numbers, you know what they mean. And my veterans out there, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do. I don't care what branch you're in, Guard or Reserve, love what you do, and I value you. My heartbeat is leadership. You know, when I retired from the Air Force, I rolled right into, you mentioned Maxwell, rolled right in, got certified as a coach, speaker, and trainer. When I heard about coaching, I thought about sports. I'm a lifelong sports guy. I love sports. So I thought about coach with the whistle on the sidelines telling me to run laps because I did the play wrong, that kind of thing. And what I learned was true coaching is exactly what I did in my Air Force career. We called it supervising and mentoring. And it is what allowed me to be successful in that role in my military career. And so started a business, LDR. I see your DG back there, Daniel Gomez. LDR is similar to your DG. It's a play on my initials. And in the Air Force, we've got 365 days worth of material to cram into 13 lines on an annual report. So we always pulled out the vowels. And so LDR means leader, which is my heartbeat, but we also love our acronyms too. And LDR stands for Leaders Develop Relationships.
Ooh, I love that. There's something when you say the word relationship, and I got to be honest, right? I think this is a good place to start because I'll be totally honest. I've been in business going on 5 years. Hasn't even been 5 years yet. By God's grace, we're entering our 5th year coming this January that we've actually been registered and full blown. But I can tell you, Dennis, I can be 100% transparent. Relationships weren't it wasn't a big issue to me. And I don't say that in like a non-caring way, but I think coming from the automotive industry for almost 20 years, it was just very transactional way of doing business, right? People need a car, they break down. Did we send out birthday cards? Yes, we had relationships, but it wasn't a focal point. And I think maybe we need to start off there because I'll tell you, God told me this about two years ago. Now you got to start building relationships, and I fought it, right? Because people would tell me, man, you sound like a car salesman. Like, well, that's who I am at the core. But I'm laughing and joking, but in all seriousness, I had to really be more intentional in building relationships. And I go to this event in Miami. And the MC, great friend of mine now, Ken Johnson, talks about, hey, relationships. Don't leave here without. And then, right, I never went into a conference, to be honest with you, connect and being intentional on connecting with 3 people. How important are relationships in life and in business, Dennis? And why is what I want to know.
Wow. Relationships are everything in business and life. And here's why. You're a dad. You're a husband, grandparent. If you don't have relationship, those are titles. If you never see your kids and you never see your wife and you never see your grandkids, those are just titles. They're not really relationships. But those relationships we can take for granted. But even in business, it's getting to know people. I hear all the time, people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And everybody wants the trust factor, but they're not willing to get to the know and like. They don't mind being known. And, when we think of like today, that's like, social media. I got a like on my post. That doesn't mean they like you. They just like whatever you posted. And sometimes they didn't even read it. They just clicked it because it's you. But the
That means they
relationship,
really like you, right?
and maybe that's the relationship piece. You've gotten past that and they trust you. But to build trust, they got to get to know you. And that leads to that vulnerability and that transparency. And I think sometimes we don't build relationships because that's our way of putting up boundaries. So we're protected so we don't get hurt, because nobody likes to get hurt. At
Oh,
my very core,
why, why,
that's
why,
who
why,
I
why,
am.
why are you poking at me so early in the conversation already, Dennis?
I'm not poking you. I'm
No,
stepping on my own toes, brother.
but you know that you say that, and that was a root cause of why it's like, not that I don't want to get to know people, right? I don't want people to get me wrong. I'm just being totally transparent. I'm being real, right? Because I think it's really critical,
Mm.
people to understand. It's important for people to understand, like, relationships. Are you really right? I believe there's different levels of relationship, and I was always stuck at the first or second level. Like, kind of really, right? Right. For me, and I'm just being honest, right? Dennis LaRue passed level one, so he came over to my house. Not a lot of people get invited over to my house, and then we had coffee, and then it's like, so you're going to level three, but that level 4 or 5, that's when I put it with those guards. But this is the thing that I screwed up at. I didn't realize it. A lot of times when, right, we'll just say as an example, right? So, ladies and
Mhm.
gentlemen, this is a part of the show where I tell you, get out your pen and paper, because Dennis is going to drop some massive wisdom, and you want to take some notes down, because what you write down, you retain over 50% of it. And you definitely want to write these notes down if you're going to write down and go back and study them a week, a month, a year later. So we'll just pretend that there's 5 levels of a relationship.
Mhm.
First one is real shallow. Second one is you kind of get a chance to know somebody. Third one is Dennis comes over and have coffee. But then what I didn't realize when it came to the fourth and fifth with the boundaries, I was kind of sabotaging some relationships, and I didn't realize that because of what you said, the trust issue, because I had been hurt prior or backstabbed. Man, talk to us about that, my brother.
Yeah, those parts right there, they hurt. And it's when you have that, it's happened to me. It's happened to me. I think everybody on here will say, those are those me too moments. You've hit home when somebody says me too. And we've all had those me too moments, and nobody wants to get hurt. I mean, nobody goes into relationships. The other person does not intentionally, I believe, say, I'm looking for a way to sabotage and hurt you. And so, and what we do is we bring old baggage from relationships and bring them into the new relationship with fear that those things are going to happen again. And you and I both know what we focus on expands. And if we're always focusing on the negative aspects of what's happened to us, it's just a matter of time before it does happen to us again. And then we say, see, I told you so. And we back out again. And we play that game over and over and over again. And so, one of the things that I've had to work through myself is just because that happened here doesn't mean it's going to happen here. And it's not going to happen exactly. And for the most part, worst case scenarios. I was a consultant in the Air Force. And one of the things that I learned is usually the perfect case scenario might happen, say, in 100%, maybe 10% of the time, but also the worst case scenario happens only about 10% of the time. It's that 80% in the middle that generally happens. And what happened to us in previous relationships are in one of those 10% that we try to bring into the 80.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a young Daniel Gomez. All right, I'm gonna throw myself on the hot seat today. There's a young Daniel Gomez, and so what do you say to that young Daniel Gomez that has been hurt, has been backstabbed, and something I didn't even realize too. Now that right after, because there was a point where it's like God says, "Well, you have all the business coaching you need, right? You need to deal with some deeper crap now, son." Because I understand business. By God's grace, He goes, "You were great at growing a business. Now to go to the next level, it has nothing to do with business. It has to do with you because you're the leg." So there's insecurities and hurts that come back from right you and from just abandonment issues from childhood or just stuff that happens to you that traumatize you, because people trauma is real, right? People don't think it's real, but let me tell you, if you see your mom and dad arguing, it's real. If you see somebody getting beat up, it's real. If you see somebody get killed in front of you, it's real. I mean, that stuff's real. So what are two things that someone can do to really, Dennis, at a deeper level, build those relationships that maybe they need to build, right? Because you think about it, I mean, I've known you for many years now, we're going on actually 4 years that I've known you. And I can say that I really trust you. I can say that I love you as a brother. I don't see you all the time, we don't communicate all the time, but I trust you, right? I know that if I need something, I can call you and vice versa. That's a relationship to me.
Yes.
How does somebody, what are two steps talking to that younger version of Daniel? What does someone have to do to work on that intention?
Talking to a younger Daniel, working with it intentionally, I think the first thing that I would have you work on is be aware that those things are going to happen at some point. You're going to experience some obstacle, some struggle, some maybe even I pray not traumatic, but just knowing to say I was speaking to a younger Daniel, I'd say you need to be ready for those times. They are coming. Don't be caught off guard when they do come. And also be aware of the emotions you experience when they do, and go talk to somebody about it, especially the emotional trauma that many people go through. You know, you need to go talk to somebody. I know I went through I'll be transparent for a moment. Back in my Air Force career, you know, it was a stereotype that you never saw a counselor for anything, because that was an indication that maybe you were not fit to be in the uniform. You could lose, say, security clearances and possibly get kicked out. That was the stereotype and the message that was constantly sent. But I reached a point where everything around me and all of my spheres of influence and all of my safety places I went to were blowing up all at once. And I didn't know what to do. And I remember having a thought that crossed my mind that, you know what, maybe life would be better without Dennis being around. Maybe my parents, maybe my wife and my kids would be better without me. That was just a thought, a simple thought. And that thought in that moment, as soon as I got that thought, I didn't invite it for dinner to say, hey, tell me more about that. I didn't even invite it for coffee either. That thought, when I hit that thought, I went and I got on the phone and I scheduled an appointment with a military counselor immediately. And that was because of the training I received that said, hey, when you see these signs and when you have these moments, when you see them in others, talk to them. But I had it in myself. And I said, you know what? I can't go to somebody else and tell them that it's okay if I'm not willing to do it myself. I punched the number. I got in. I saw a counselor for a year, over a year, to work through things I need to work through. And I can honestly say that counselor was a godsend for me.
Yeah.
Just helped me. So back to young Daniel is when you get in that moment and you feel like that's too much for you to handle, call a counselor, because they're there to help you. So get that help. Now, if you don't need a counselor and it's relationship and you're just feeling distraught, don't go it alone. Go along, get a mentor, get a coach, get a trusted friend, or in this case, a younger Daniel, family. If it's not a family member, come alongside your family. They may have experience, or they can connect you with somebody. There's somebody there to help you. So the reason these things happen isn't for you to go it alone and try to figure it out. Find those people who have been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and will put their arm around you and say, I love you, and I'm going to walk you through it.
Yeah. And and the thing that I didn't see as far as now, right, 2 years later, now that I've been being more intentional in building relationships and just from a different perspective, it's like it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to build these relationships because there's people out there that genuinely care. I just came myself just from this yesterday. I was on a podcast yesterday, and like you don't realize that how many people are for you. I think a lot of times we see the people that are not for us because right they just don't support you, and it's okay. And I think it's kind of like a like a Google review on food, right? You go to a restaurant, and man, everybody lets you know when the food was cold and it stunk. We're gonna let you hear it, but many times you don't. That man, the food was delicious, but they just It's great. I've got nothing to say. But so you don't even think about leaving a review. But it's those good food reviews that you want to hear. And when people say, "Man, Daniel, you really helped me," man, it's like you're doing things. And going back to what you said about the likes, I think people need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, in this era, the people that support you don't always like your posts. Like they don't always comment on Facebook. They don't always comment on Instagram. They don't always comment on LinkedIn. Most of my clients, I've said this before, Dennis, come, I go, how, where? Yeah, I've been following you on LinkedIn. And I go, well, dude, you never, I don't say this, but I'm thinking like, you've never liked none of my stuff, but you know, people are watching you to see how that, and a great example, I've been on that podcast, he goes, man, I look up to you. I really do. Like, you're my mentor. And I'm like, I've never talked to you once. So, and right, I mean, this is in your own intellect, you want to think that, but God says, well, you put out so much content that they watch it and they get their own version of Daniel. They get enough of you that it helps them. And I think that I bring this up because that's what building trust is. That's what building trust is, because you never know, one person can help change your life.
Exactly. And you bring up a great point too, that I share with students that I coach is, we're really gifted. We're naturally bent and gifted at finding problems and what's wrong with everything. It's a gift. I mean, we just see it. But we need to do a better job of catching people doing something right and affirm them in it. Here, a classic example for me, second grade. I turned 52 just 2 weeks ago, okay? 52. And I can still remember at the age of 8, my second grade teacher, Miss Dorothy Winder, coming up to me as I was writing in on my paper with my big, giant, husky, fat pencil. And I remember her saying to me, Denny LaRue, you have excellent handwriting. I never forgot that moment. And I have purposely tried to write neatly ever since. So I knew right away I'm not going to be a doctor. And so I've always focused on that. So, and I still remember her words. I can remember the classroom. I could tell you where it happened. And it was an affirming action that I always remember. And so, and I go back to that often, as you can tell, because it energizes me. I mean, I can just feel the energy pouring in me just telling you that story. And we need to be doing more of that, because that also builds that trust. It also builds that encouragement. And it's Daniel Gomez inspires. It breathes life into people. I mean, I got my mug right here. Inspire someone today. That is my rule of 5. That's my life word behind me. That's who I want to be known for. I want you to see me and say, man, that guy was CPR for me, for my business, my leadership, my family, my life. He breathed life into me when I was out, I was drowning.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that I changed about myself is I think so many times we put it off on other people, on these relationships.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is this: well, okay, well, we'll just say it's a stranger. But I think what the audience maybe needs to hear right now is, what's your approach to meet new people? What's your approach? If you're looking for the worst in people, what are you going to get, Dennis? The worst.
Yeah.
But if you set up, I'm going to go to this networking event, I'm going to go to this conference to look for the best in people, really try to see the best in people. It's like, it's a whole different approach than trying to find everybody's faults, or right, are they just out here to get me, or you just never know, right? I mean, I've seen the attitudes in some of these networking events, some of these conferences. People just like, oh, I like, people just want to take your money, or this, like, right, if you go in with that attitude, you're never going to succeed, right? You should go in there with the attitude, I believe, and I want your perspective on this is, right, let me go in there and see, look for the best in Dennis. Let me look for the best in the people that are at this conference, and let me see who I can help. What's the difference in the both approaches, do you think?
I love the second approach. Obviously, I love going to events, and my mindset is, who am I going to meet today? It's almost like, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Who are the people in my neighborhood? Who are going to be here in this room that if I didn't come in this room, I'd never meet again? Who am I supposed to meet? Who are the divine connections? Who, when I walk into the room, it's like there's a light on them that says, I've got to go talk to this person. I don't know what it is about them, but I've got to go talk to them. and I'll just start naturally gravitating, sensing that energy, or that it's almost like taking one of those sticks and looking for water out in the field. It's just I'm navigating the room and I get to that person and I just hear keywords, or I hear a phrase, or maybe I hear that they're talking about a sporting event, something that just catches my attention. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to plant here and
Yeah.
wait, and then talk to them. But if I come with an intentional expectancy to serve and add value to people, I know it's going to come back to me. We reap what we sow, right? So if I'm reaping the negativity, if I'm thinking, these people are just here to sell me, they're trying to take my money, man, they don't really care about me. All they care about is the transaction. I'm just a number in their day to get closer to the yes that they're looking for. And if I go in with
Yeah.
that attitude, I'm just going to get that.
That thinking right there, what Dennis just portrayed, might be hurting your relationships. Because that, think about it. If you put out that frequency, that energy, you're going to attract that type of person. You're going to attract that type of client if you're in business. And you're hurting yourself, and you got to take ownership of that. So maybe your relationships haven't been great or even just good because what energy are you putting out there? What frequency are you putting out there? What's your approach? And I tell you, when I changed that, it really, I started attracting a different group of people. And like a great friend of ours, Jose, he invited us to be part of this, speak at in his community. And before, I probably wouldn't have done it, right? But I said, you know what? I want to support him. I want to support him. He supported me, and it's amazing when you just do things like that. Everything comes back, and the relationships have built me right. This is the thing. I think this is the part that people miss is because you open yourself up to one relationship. That's just the doorway to many more relationships.
Yes, I've heard this said that the average person has anywhere from 750 to 1,000 people in their network. That's average. And the mistake that we make in sales and networking is we sell to the person in front of us instead of building the relationship with the person who may connect you with somebody in their network that you're supposed to be connected with. And I mean, I picked that up recently from a book that I read called The Power of Who by Bob Bodine. And he says this, all of us are looking for that secret connection that's going to open the door for everything. Or we're friend requesting or whatever in LinkedIn to somebody out of the blue that doesn't know us. And the premise of this book is everybody you need to know right now to get to where you want to go next. Just build the relationships with the people in your Who network. And that just blew me away. And it's like, I needed that revectoring because I've had some of those thoughts of, you know what, I need something new. I got to try something different. I got to do this. And it's like, no, how about I just start pouring some water and some fertilizer on the relationships I already have, and let's see the fruit grow from it versus trying to dig up a whole new garden and plant new seed.
Yes, that's powerful there because think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Think about what me and Dennis have been talking about. Where in your life, where in your relationships, do you have the wrong approach? If you have a wrong approach, if you have a shitty attitude, you're just going to create a mess. Open your heart up to see the best in people. When you approach any relationship trying to see the good in people, you're going to get the good. But if you go in there expecting to see the bad, you're going to get the bad. And think about what Dennis is saying. Who do you know right now that maybe knows someone that you don't know? I mean, if you think about it, right? When Dennis puts it in that way, I know somebody that knows Tony Robbins. I know somebody that knows personally at my vet. I know somebody that knows personally, right? I know Brandon Dawson myself. I mean, I had that Brandon Dawson on my podcast. I communicate with him like he's Grant Cardone's right hand man. That right? I mean, but you're always one connection away from that next level person. But I say that because you know somebody too. You just don't realize it because you're not opening your heart and your eyes to it.
Absolutely. And when you believe the best in people, they tend to rise to the level of expectation you put on them. If you believe they're a 5,
Ooh,
then they're going to act like a 4
I gotta
or a
give you
3.
that's a round of applause up there. Say that again. Say that again.
People tend to rise to the level of expectancy you put on them. If you believe they're a 10, then they're going to rise to meet that, even if they themselves think they're a 5. They're going to go that next level. And you see it in kids. I've seen it in my own life as a kid, and I've seen it with kids. When you put a level of expectation on kids and you believe in them, they rise to that level of belief that you put in them. And some people need that because they don't believe in themselves, and they have to borrow your belief in order to get to that level where they begin to believe in themselves. You're their life support system in some cases. But if you don't believe the best in them, then they will meet your level of expectation. And to expect them to exceed that is insanity, right?
Yeah.
I can't
Wow.
expect you to be a 10 if I believe you're a 5. You can sense when I don't believe in you.
Yeah. That's so powerful there. I love the conversation we're having. So someone's listening to this episode. Great. You can say that because right, you're not that Dennis has arrived or Daniel has arrived, but now let's kind of go a little bit deeper, Dennis.
Yeah.
Tell us a relationship that maybe did really go south, right? And a time that a relationship that you got hurt, and what did you learn about yourself, and how did you handle that?
Wow, that's a great question. Man, I can think of a bunch of relationships.
And don't say when you first met me either.
No, sir, we met over coffee, brother. No, no, no. That's funny.
we're
Actually,
gonna we're gonna have some humor in the conversation, but no, take it away, Dennis.
it was actually it was a leader that I valued. It was a leader that I was meeting with. It was a leader I was pouring into and being poured into. And a situation came up here without going into all the details, but a situation came up that involved my family. And I went to the leadership saying, hey, but here's a situation going on. I need your help. And the leader said to me that the best way for us to handle this situation was to leave their organization. There was a conflict between two families, and I was encouraged to leave. Quote, I was the more mature leader in the situation. That devastated me. I spiraled for a few years after that statement because I put such one, I realized in my error, I was putting all of my leadership expectations on this leader to the point they couldn't ever meet my expectations as that leader. And so that was my mistake of putting all of my leadership currency in that one relationship and nearly setting this person up to be a leadership god, little
So
g.
what do you mean you spiraled? What is that, right? Because spiral can mean
Oh, yeah.
differences.
The organization I was a part of was a church. I didn't go to church for 3 years after that. And I had and it hit me, wounded me so deeply that I know it impacted my family and their spiritual growth as a result, or lack thereof. There was no spiritual growth in us at all for a couple of years after that. And so it was a failure. I don't put all the blame on that leader, by the way, because I'm the leader of my home.
Yeah.
And I made a conscious decision to not pursue my faith walk at that point. And it had an impact on my family that I think has impacted them to some degree today. I mean, I talk to my kids, they're all grown up now, and we've had conversations about it, but we remember that situation. And I, it hurt and wounded me deeply. And I, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, that carried over into churches I went to after that. I was carrying that with me. So another lesson for all of us out here is how you leave a place is how you enter the next one. So if you've got unresolved baggage at one place, the baggage is coming with you.
And you see that a lot in marriages. I think. I mean, not. I'm just. That's what the first thing that came to mind is you have a bad breakup, whether you're the male or the female, and you bring that crap into the new relationship, and it's like
Yeah.
You got to fix you.
Yeah.
And the same thing is for a work relationship. If you leave a job in a bad situation, you're going to carry that same baggage with you.
Yeah. And then you say, oh no, here it goes again. Well, no, it never left. You didn't drop the baggage off and leave it. You carried it with you. You just
So,
repackaged it.
so what did you learn in that situation when you're like, okay, you spiraled for a couple of, what did you learn about yourself and how did you grow from that in your
Uh,
relationships?
I learned that I can't rely on the leadership above me to do all the leadership work. I got to lead myself. And I've got a responsibility to lead those that I lead, regardless of those above me. Yes, I'm all about leadership by example, but if I allow the leader above me's example to ruin my example, I've got to have enough. I need to have enough courage and character to not allow that to impact and affect me and those under me. I need to be top cover at that point, and I need to take it and make the adjustments. And
Ooh,
also,
you know what came to mind? I mean, sorry, but you know what came to mind when you
yeah,
said that? Do you think maybe people have the wrong relationship with themselves?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, well, I'd say we do. When I mentioned LDR means leaders develop relationships, the number one relationship we got to develop is with ourselves first. And what I noticed was I was really good at being the radio sportscaster and analyst of everybody else's leadership, but I wasn't looking in the mirror at my own and analyzing myself and watching the tape and the playbook and journaling like I do now and identifying strengths and weaknesses and also having those tough conversations with people to say, hey, remember my flag, my BS flag, blind spots,
Yeah.
baby, the challenge flag. Let people throw on that challenge flag at me and saying, hey, you got some blind spots and we need to expose them. So we need you to sit down, listen, take good notes, and then make the adjustments you need to make now that the blind spots are exposed. And I wasn't doing
Wow.
that as a leader like I should have. And it's not fun. I mean, it steps on toes. You feel like you're wearing all your armor, but in this case, all the armor's off and now you're meeting with the commander. The commander says, boy, you guys are horrible. We lost X number of people today. You didn't practice this well. It's like the coach in the locker room at halftime. You guys were down by 60 points. You're not doing anything right. Take off the uniforms. I'm going to go into the stands and go get me people that can play.
Yeah. I love what we're talking about because I think people need to hear this because I think as a society, we need to work on relationships. As a society, we need to really self-assess how are my relationships.
Mm,
I heard just on a podcast, right? Everybody wants to be a $7 million earner. Oh yeah, I'm a seven-figure earner. Yeah, but are you seven? Right? I'm a seven-figure businessman, but are you a seven-figure dad? Are you a seven-figure mom? Are you a seven-figure dad, friend? And most people probably won't be there. And that's not to bash anybody, but when ET said that, it's like, wow. And I've heard it before, right? Because I believe, right? My way of describing that is put God first, business, and
mhm.
then family. Relationships, right? You got to prioritize your relationships. Your relationship with God, your relationship with family, then your business relationships.
Yep.
But the way, right? Because I think right now, right, you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. We have a business. It's like you hear about six figures, seven figures. Well, great, you're earning six figures. Great, you're earning seven figures. But do you have a seven-figure marriage in your relationship?
That's powerful. Yes, that's a great statement. Looking at that, when I've got those mixed up, that's when everything goes wonky. Like the spiritual leadership that we were just talking about a minute ago. When that got wonky, everything was a mess. Family, work, everything was a mess. And then when I got faith right and I got work over family, then that got messy. And when you finally get those in order, and it seems like the older you get, you finally realize, oh, that's what I need to do. Where was this when I was younger? Going back to that younger self. And
Yeah.
we don't want to go back to regret, because the things that we did back then helped make us in our stories they are today. But if we could go back, would I change some things? Oh, yes, I would. Oh, yes, I would. But I'm grateful for where I'm at now and all of the lessons I've had to learn to get there, because now we're having this conversation that goes out to tens of hundreds of thousands of people that might pick up that one little thing that they need, that they'll get wisdom from. And wisdom is learning from the mistakes of others so you don't make them, and put your plan in place so you don't make them. Not just learn the lesson here, but actually put something together so you do it, which which, like the butterfly whispers, can lead to generational impact over time. And
Love it.
so if one person gets that today, then you and I have done our job. We've done the inspiration. We've moved the needle forward. That's the one reason why we are here today, then one day we're going to hear the master say, well done. Look what you did today.
Amen. So what's your best relationship advice?
Wow. Best relationship advice.
If you have to, you can give us two.
Wow. Best relationship advice. You know, man, there's so many that just come to mind. I think the first one that comes to mind is listen. And when I say listen, not hear, don't be Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. He's hearing, he's listening, but actually intentional listening. People want to know that they're heard. You know, my wife gets on to me about this. I'm upstairs in my office and I do this, and I've been working on this. I'll come out of my office and start talking as I'm coming down the stairs with no awareness whatsoever what she's doing. Maybe she's working on something. Maybe she's on a phone call, or maybe she's taking a nap and I'm waking her up with me yelling down the house because I'm excited about something. You know,
I've done that before. I'm not, because I've done that before.
yeah, listen. You got to listen, and you got to hear. And not only do you got to hear, you got to hear what's not being said. Great coaches listen to what's said and what's not said, and they listen for the tone. They listen to body language and all that, because there's something there. People want to be helped, and they want help. They're afraid to ask for it, and sometimes it takes you as the leader to initiate the conversation in the relationship and just ask, how can I serve you? How can I help you? You know, I noticed today you seem off. Is everything okay? You want to go get a coffee and sit down? And those moments, and just listen and hear what they say, have been transformational in different areas, in different people, in relationships at home, business relationships, and just military relationships. Just taking that time. People want to be heard. They want to be understood. You may not agree with what they say. You may not agree with the direction they're going. But if you listen to them, they'll be open to hear from you.
Amen. What's a quote or a scripture you rely on in times of adversity? A quote or a scripture you rely on in times of adversity?
I can give you one of each if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, we'll go worst to first. The Bible verse is first. So the worst one is the scripture. The quote that sticks with me every time when I'm in moments of adversity is this: be ready to preach, pray, or die at a moment's notice. It's the best advice that I've ever received. It was a pastor. And you may not be a person of faith, and you're saying, well, the whole concept of that verse, of that quote is this: be ready, be resilient, and take the initiative. When everybody else doesn't want to do something, and it leaps up in you, that's opportunity. You got to grab it, because you may not get it again. It's too late when you let it go by.
Love it.
In the Bible verse, this is my life verse. This verse has always gripped me from the day I read it. And it's similar to the quote, and it's this. It's Philippians 1:21. To live is Christ, and to die is gain. That means you got to go all in, and you got to go all out. I've run a marathon, And I can remember crossing the finish line the first time I ran that marathon, and it was brutal. I didn't have anything left. I didn't know if I was going to make it. That's how we need to be at the end of life. But it's not that we're used up in hating life like I was hating the last 6 miles of that marathon. It's crossing the finish line, and you went all in to the race. You did everything to prepare. You poured into everything, and then you ran all out and gave everything you had. And when you got to the finish line, there's not an ounce of energy left, but there's nothing but pure joy and celebration when you get to the end. And to me, that's to live as Christ and to die as gain, because to die is I lived a purpose-filled, transformational, life-altering, life-changing, world-changing life. And I can now enter the chute to receive the prize and hear well done.
Love it, man. That's awesome. How do we get a hold of you, Dennis? Somebody wants to get connected with Dennis LaRue. How does somebody connect with Dennis?
Well, you know what? There are a lot of different ways to get connected to me. The easiest way, social media, Facebook, Dennis LaRue Jr., LinkedIn, same Dennis LaRue Jr., but also I've got a Calendly link, and I'll send it to you. If anybody here says, hey, man, I'd love to have Dennis listen to me, because I will. I need a listener. I need a listener. Then I've got a Calendly link, 30 minutes complimentary, just to sit down, and I'll sit with you. I'll listen to you. And if I can serve you any way, I will. And so those are the best ways to connect with me.
Love it, man. Well, thank you for joining us today, Dennis. Ladies and gentlemen, think about what we talked about today. Maybe you think your relationships are good, and maybe they are. But I want to challenge you with 2 words. How can you make them even more better, right? How can you make them even more? How can you make your relationships even more successful, connect even more at a deeper level? So go back, study your notes, take time to yourself, reflect on this episode, maybe listen to it 2 times, 3 times. I guarantee you're going to hear something you didn't hear the first time, because I know I do when I go back and listen to podcast episodes 3 times. And really reflect on your relationships. Maybe your relationships is what's hindering your business. You're trying to do it by yourself. You have the I don't need anybody attitude and you don't even realize it. Or maybe you've just been hurt and you're scared to get hurt. We get it. But it's time you stop living life by yourself and really understand that relationship is a currency. Relationship will help you in your life, in your business. So take it to your heart today. And Dennis, again, thank you, my brother. Thank you for joining us. And woo! We're going to be back next week with another amazing guest here. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business, go to danielgomezglobal.com. That's danielgomezglobal.com, and do our entrepreneur assessment there. It's free for you. And send us a message through our message page there on our website. I want to give you a complimentary 45-minute discovery session. And better yet, go to the makingsofaMillionaireMind.com. Really get your mind shifted and get our new book. We'll send you an autographed copy here in America. And then also get our course, the Makings of a Millionaire Mind course. So bless you. I promise you that. November 18th and 19th. Don't miss it. Our inaugural Makings of a Millionaire Mind boot camp live here in San Antonio, Texas, November 18th and 19th. And don't forget our women's conference next month here in a couple of weeks, October 15th. If you're a woman out here in South Texas, San Antonio, get your tickets on Eventbrite. We want to see at our Finding Your Inner Beauty Women's Conference. We're going to have inspiring speakers. Remember, one of the 7 speakers, I guarantee, is going to give you an idea to just find your true potential or elevate your life. This is Daniel Gomez Inspire saying we'll see you next week with another amazing guest on our show. And thank you for joining us this week.
This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.